Get Rich Education is brought to you by Norada Real Estate and Garrett Sutton's Corporate Direct.
Welcome to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, giving you information and ideas on the investment that has turned more ordinary people into millionaires and billionaires than anything else, and can provide you with more wealth and happiness than you ever thought possible. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, and educator, Keith Weinhold.
Welcome to Get Rich Education, episode 82. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. How are you? Another week here, striking back like the empire to help you build your wealth. We're going to talk today about how you buy an income property. Just simply that, especially as it pertains to buying an out-of-state turnkey income property from the time that you get a property under contract and submit the earnest money to escrow all the way to closing, because that's how you generate passive income, which in turn creates a rich life for you. I'm also going to talk about why in the heck someone would want to sell you a cash flowing property in the first place, right? I mean, why would someone sell you a good thing that pays every month that they hold on to it? You're going to get some answers there. That's today's show. In 2 weeks, Robert Kiyosaki will be here with me for his Get Rich Education debut. And I've got to admit, I'm kind of nervous about that one, okay? With Mr. Kiyosaki, you just never know what he's going to say. And, well, I guess that's what makes him interesting to listen to. And, you know, I have had a clean lyrics show since inception here. So now, Robert Kiyosaki is known as a financial educator. He's the #1 selling financial author of all time. Well, he's also a great student of the game. A few months ago, when we were on the Investor Summit at Sea together, he's in the back of the room attending every class and furiously taking notes. He had quite the attendance record there. So that's 2 weeks from now that Robert Kiyosaki will be here with me. Well, back to a rich life. You know, isn't it amazing? It's just amazing to me. A lot of people just are not into living a rich life. It's like Brian Tracy says, the #1 reason that people aren't wealthy is simply this. It just does not occur to them that they can be. Yeah, that's it. It sounds so simple. But the #1 reason that people aren't wealthy is simply because it just does not occur to them that they can be. It sounds so simple, but, you know, people just don't believe that it is that simple. I mean, like I say, the scarcity mentality is abundant and the abundance mentality is scarce. Now, when most people think about financial improvement, I think the first thought that comes to mind is like getting a hot coupon code so that they can save money on protein powder from bodybuilding.com or something trivial like that, or trying really hard to get the cheapest gym membership. How many coupon codes is it going to take for you to actually live the lifestyle that you dream of? All right, well, you couldn't possibly have enough of them. So instead, when you focus on expanding your upside, expanding your income, rather than cutting down your expenses, you're going to feel that increasing your income has far more impact. And living a rich life is not all about the income, though it is part of it, okay? That passive income is just the conduit to deliver more discretionary time to you so that you can fill it with what makes a life rich, with things like peace, happiness, love, freedom, joy. The demographics are now such that we really are potentially coming into the best decade ever for owning income-generating rental property. Okay, prices are higher than they were 5 years ago, yes, but rents are also higher than they were 5 years ago. In some markets, rents have increased proportionally greater than sale prices. Mortgage interest rates are still near historic lows. The homeownership rate is lower than it was 5 years ago. And in fact, it's at multi-generational lows. And that homeownership rate keeps going lower. Well, that means that there are more and more renters instead of owners. hence more rental demand. And that's demand for the product that you're providing. Student loan debt prevents millennials from being homeowners, and it keeps them as renters longer. People are getting married even later, and that trends toward more rental demand because household formation, that correlates with home ownership, and millennials are postponing that household formation until later. And with the stock market near nominal highs, it just makes tremendous sense to buy income property. So we're going to talk specifically about that exact process and how you buy it. Now, first of all, before you buy an income property that cash flows every month, consider that first someone needs to decide to sell that property. To sell that property, they need to decide to put that property on the market and sell it to you first. So you might be asking yourself, now why in the world would anyone sell a property to me if that property provides them with cash flow? Okay, because if a property provides that owner, that seller, with income every month while they hold on to it, then it just doesn't make any sense for them to sell it to me. Well, maybe there's something wrong with it then. Okay, some seller out there has a golden goose that lays a golden egg every month. So why in the world would they sell that goose to me and give me an opportunity to buy it? That's what you might be thinking. Well, there are just so many reasons for selling cash flowing property. Yes, a ton of reasons for selling even a young, healthy goose that lays golden eggs every month and is expected to do so for years. One reason is moving. Say that a family in City A owns a few mom and pop rental homes that they self-manage, and they're moving to City B in another state. Well, they will often sell their income properties because some people want to self-manage their property, often because they never explored their best and highest use in life. But anyway, if they have to move from City A to City B, they'll sell the property rather than try to find a property manager back in City A that they left. Another reason people sell cash flowing property is that even if someone is not moving, that person might be tired. They're just sick of the self-management hassle, but yet a lot of times they don't even try professional management because that person has the DIYer mentality, that do-it-yourself mentality, okay? Most people just don't take a strategic approach to real estate investing or really finding out what they want in life at all. Other reasons for people selling cash flowing property can be death, marriage, divorce, all kinds of either joyous or tragic life milestones, okay? If a husband and wife own rental properties, but running and managing them was kind of the husband's thing and not the wife's, and the husband dies, well, the wife doesn't know how to run the properties, and she's likely to sell them rather than hire a property manager because it's just too much for her to figure out herself. That happens sometimes, okay? Now, people might also sell their cash flowing property in case of all kinds of other emergencies, medical and otherwise. So people might just need a quick lump of cash that they get on the sale of a property instead of the steady stream of cash flow over time that just wouldn't work for them in their new emergency situation. Now, I guess most of those situations I've just explained right there involve some sort of external life change for property sellers. A lot of them tragic. Well, here's a personal one for you. Okay, 3 years ago, I sold 2 cash-flowing apartment buildings at the same time. Well, those sales actually closed on consecutive days. Okay, so nearly the same time that I sold those 2 good cash-flowing apartment buildings. And both of those buildings I sold, they were 100% occupied with tenants at the time I sold them. I had competent management in place. There wasn't any deferred maintenance issue with the buildings. And yet I really wanted to sell these healthy cash-flowing properties. All right, you know my reason for selling 2 nice golden gooses that were steadily laying some nice golden eggs? Can you guess why? And fortunately, I did not have any distress or any sort of emergency in I or my wife's life or our family's lives. Oh, and I wanted to sell them really fast, too. I could not let these 2 cash-flowing apartment buildings linger on the market for a while either. I really wanted to get rid of them. Do you have any idea why? All right. And I had no distress, like I mentioned earlier. Can you guess why I wanted to sell these long producing golden gooses in a good job growth market that produced nice cash flow, nice golden eggs? I'll tell you why. That's because I knew that I could 1031 exchange those two gooses for two even larger gooses, okay? Yes, I replaced the two smaller apartment buildings with two larger apartment buildings that would produce even larger eggs and were also, I guess, very fertile egg producers that were going to produce even more cash flow for me over time. And that's also why I needed to jettison the smaller apartment buildings within certain timelines. I needed to close on the larger apartment buildings within those strict 1031 exchange timelines. Okay, that way I could use the equity from the smaller properties to reset my leverage ratio and lever into larger, more profitable apartment buildings. I think you get the message here, all right? To the buyers of my smaller apartment buildings, I appeared as a very motivated seller of cash flowing property, even though I had no external stress in my life, all right? It was due to internal reasons that I wanted to sell, and it was that internal drive to expand my means and expand my income and not spend my time thinking about shrinking my expenses. Well, we've talked on the show a lot about market selection, team selection, and property selection, so we won't spend too much more time on the what to buy before we get into the how to buy. And on today's show, we're talking mostly about how to buy single-family turnkey homes, especially homes outside your home market, as most of the best deals are not found where you live. Most of those best deals are not found in the coastal areas of the United States. They're found in the Midwest and the South. Like they say, live where you want to live and invest where the numbers make sense. With today's low interest rates, a rent-to-value ratio of 1% is generally quite desirable, meaning 1 month's rent is 1% or more of the purchase price. For example, a $150,000 property should have a monthly rent income of at least $1,500. You typically want to avoid properties with RV ratios, rent-to-value ratios, of less than 0.7 to 0.8 of 1%. And hey, let's keep in mind that the RV ratio has some limits, okay? It's only a rule of thumb. It does not account for some major recurring expense like property taxes. In high property tax jurisdictions like many of the Texas markets, you probably want that RV ratio of closer to that full 1% if you want to generate some positive cash flow. Now, something that novice real estate investors say sometimes is something like this. I would only buy an income property that I would live in myself. I'm going to contend that that is an awful criterion upon which to found strategic fundamentals on purchasing an income property, okay? Once one filters property that way, they have just let emotions trump facts. If the fact that a clean, safe, affordable, functional property has a good occupancy rate in a sound employment market and the numbers make sense, that's a heck of a lot more important than how it looks. You're not going to be living there yourself, so it's just not a sound criterion. I mean, geez, if I moved into any income property that I own, my lifestyle would take a substantial hit. And I'm not a slumlord. I do provide housing that's clean, safe, affordable, and functional. That's a mission of mine. But these places are not replete with fantastic amenities. It does not have Corinthian architecture with alabaster columns, okay? But I know that there's a demographic for my rental property type that demands this responsible but no frills housing over time. It's about asking yourself a better question like, will this property secure an income stream? That's a great question when you're looking for profitability. Will this property secure an income stream? That's asking yourself a great question. I mean, would you rather have your property look cute as a button or secure an income stream? We are investors here. Now, sometimes the prospective turnkey property buyer they're concerned, and maybe it's a concern of yours, that the turnkey provider themselves, where they're going to keep all the good turnkey properties for themselves and shove off the lesser ones to the everyday buyer like you. Well, that's just not true, all right? For one thing, the people that work for the turnkey provider, they have to qualify for loans just like you, and they can only buy and hold so many properties before they are out of loans. And really, most employees that work for turnkey companies, they don't own any income property, and a lot of them don't have the financial means to do so, and some of them don't have the interest to do so either. As far as me, I want to work with a turnkey provider that does have some employees that own turnkey property in their own market. That demonstrates to me that they believe in their product. They stand behind what they provide. Some people think that in today's electronic age that you ought to be able to complete a property purchase from the time that you write an offer until you close on a property in the same day, and that is certainly not true. Physical things need to take place. We're going to discuss that next. This is Get Rich Education.
Garrett Sutton here, Robert Kiyosaki's asset protection attorney and the author of Loopholes of Real Estate. As an American or foreign-based investor in U.S. real estate, you know we are a litigious society. You know that you need to protect your real estate and paper asset holdings with the right mix of LLCs and corporations. My firm, Corporate Direct, not only forms these entities, but importantly, we properly maintain them too. If you fail to follow the corporate formalities, you can lose it all in an instant. Corporate Direct is your source for LLC protection and maintenance in all 50 states. Visit corporatedirect.com or call 800-600-1760. Mention Get Rich Education for a free bonus. Switch your resident agent service to us and receive another bonus. It's all good. We look forward to assisting you at corporatedirect.com.
Are you looking for a roadmap to financial freedom? If so, we have a solution for you. Norada Real Estate is offering a limited number of free strategy sessions to help you get out of the rat race. Learn how you can create wealth and build monthly passive income. To set up a time with one of our knowledgeable investment counselors, simply go to noradarealestate.com. That's NORADA realestate.com.
This is Norada Real Estate's Marco Santarelli. Listen to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, and don't quit your daydream.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education. You heard the voice of Rich Dad Advisor Garrett Sutton there on the break. You know, it is fun to chase the next deal and for you to plot that investment strategy. No doubt about it. Everyone likes the thrill of the hunt. I do too. But Garrett can help you protect what you've got. When Robert Kiyosaki was famously sued, what was sued was really only one of his 28 companies or whatever, and Robert's liability was limited there because his other 27 companies or whatever it was just weren't affected and they couldn't be touched by this. So Garrett is Robert Kiyosaki's asset protection attorney. Garrett is who I've looked up for my own needs, and he has set up and maintains entities for a number of my friends. And, the thing is his fees are quite reasonable. So it is totally attainable for you to have Garrett Sutton's firm, Corporate Direct, maintain your entities too. And that's the same firm that provides this service to Robert Kiyosaki. So you can check out corporatedirect.com and mention Get Rich Education for a free bonus, like he says there in the commercial. And I don't get anything for you mentioning Get Rich Education. And actually, I don't even know what the free bonus for mentioning GRE is either. So let me know if you find out what it is. Garrett was here with me on episode 15 as well. And he's a cool guy. Garrett gets out and does stuff. He visits Alaska. He skis in Tahoe. And I even found out that Garrett and I have each climbed Nevada's highest point, too, of all things. So, all right, when you want to buy an income property and you've provided your mortgage loan officer with what they've asked for, including your last 2 years of tax returns is typically what they ask for. They'll also probably ask for your last 2 pay stubs and your last 2 to 3 months bank statements. What you're going to do is you'll get a pre-qualification letter or a pre-approval letter from that lender. A pre-qualification letter, okay, that simply states that you've just talked to a lender, and if everything's true, then you're qualified for a certain amount of an income property purchase, okay? That's a pre-qualification letter. Now, a pre-approval letter, that's issued after the lender has actually verified that you're qualified for a loan, okay? So a pre-approval letter, that makes the offer stronger than a pre-qualification letter, okay? They've actually verified your income and your financial information. You're going to make an offer on an income property. Now, with turnkey providers, a lot of buyers just pay the asking price, but you know what? You might get $1,000 or $2,000 knocked off the asking price of the property. The first turnkey I ever bought was in Texas, and they brought the $155,000 asking price down to $153K for me, all right? Now, once your offer is accepted, I want to give you, really, it's just kind of a brief outline of what you should expect next, all right? And this is not intended to give you every last step in detail, but this is generally what comes next for United States real estate purchases. And of course, custom varies somewhat from state to state. So with that in mind, once the turnkey provider or seller accepts your purchase offer, then upon acceptance, you need to send in your earnest money. Earnest money is not the down payment. What it does is it kind of shows good faith that you're serious about your offer. And the seller should give you instructions on how to do this. Remember, your earnest money deposit is not going directly to the seller, though. It's going to go to a third-party escrow account, and that earnest money is refundable to you in accordance with the terms of the contract that you sign. Your contract should have an estimated closing date in there, and I want to emphasize that the key word there is estimated, all right? While it is important that all parties work towards closing by this date, between you and me, let's just be realistic. The reality is that many transactions get delayed beyond the closing date in the contract for a variety of reasons, often on the seller side, sometimes having to do with construction or renovation delays, all right? If this happens, it's really nothing to be worried about. Just remain in touch with the seller, and you can simply sign a contract extension if needed when the time comes. Now, if you are financing your property, which I generally hope you are, so that you get that leverage and so that you get those inflation profiting benefits over the long term, all right, if you're financing, be sure to get your lender everything they ask you for up front so that they can begin processing your loan right away. As your closing gets near, they're probably going to ask you for some more updated information, and they're probably even going to have some final stipulations from the underwriter. So just remain in close touch with your lender and try to provide them with what they need as swiftly as you practically can, okay? Once construction or renovation is completed on your turnkey property, I suggest that you choose to order a professional home inspection prior to you closing. Now, as the buyer, paying for that inspection is at your expense, but the home inspection, that is cheap insurance for you, and it is an important part of your due diligence. It might cost you about $300 for a single-family turnkey income property for that inspection, for that inspector to actually come out and physically look over the property and write a report. A fourplex inspection might cost up toward $800. A duplex, maybe $500 more for an inspection. Now, of course, you can also get in a car or jump on a plane and visit the turnkey property yourself. I'd say probably fewer than 10% of turnkey buyers do this. Today it's easier than ever for a provider to email you a video. You've got tools at your disposal like Google Street View, but it's never a bad idea to go see the property in person if you so choose. Your out-of-state turnkey provider, they can typically give you contact info for home inspectors that their other clients have used in that market when the time comes, or you can just Google it and go ahead and find your own. When you're going to find an inspector, seek ASHI certification. ASHI, that's American Society of Home Inspectors, I believe. In any case, it's ASHI certification, ASHI, that you're looking for. You want to find an inspector with a good reputation and that's licensed and bonded, and it is good to look for a level of experience as well. The choice is really yours as a buyer. As a buyer, you're the one that chooses the inspector. Your inspector points out a number of deficiencies after they have walked the home, and I'll break those into a few categories, all right? The first category that your inspector might find is what I'll call major concerns, significantly defective things, safety issues that require immediate repair. And in fact, oftentimes these things must be done in order for your lender to even finance the property. So the seller is almost certainly going to do those things for you. That might be things like adding a railing to a porch, okay? That would be a safety concern that must be done. The second category are what I'll call recommended repairs, recommended but not required. And then the third category is kind of, it would be nice if it were done, like a kitchen cabinet door that's a little bit loose and it doesn't quite close snugly. So you've got your property inspection report back, and when you get your home inspection report back, the thing to remember is that the inspector will always return a list, usually a long list of items that they recommend to be corrected prior to closing. And this even happens on brand new construction, so expect this long list from your inspector, okay? And even on new construction, they might say that the bushes need to be trimmed or something like that. And remember, you're not closing on the property in the condition that was inspected. Rather, the inspection, that's just part of your process on the path to getting your property to its final condition before you close, and it's yours. Now, when you get the inspection report back, simply send that home inspection report to the seller. Let them review it, and then you and the seller agree on what will be fixed. And that's going to be fixed at the seller's expense, and that's going to be verified to your satisfaction that it was actually done prior to closing on the property, okay? And the seller is expecting you to send them this report. They're anticipating that they will need to make some final repairs at their expense after they get the inspection report from you, okay? They know it's coming. It's all part of the normal process. It's not like you're hitting them with a big surprise. Now, I really want to see you sign a written management agreement with your property manager about this time. This gives the manager, like they have now your express authority to actually manage the property for you and make decisions on your behalf. That management agreement is going to state the manager's fees, and it's going to have your contact information and some other things in that agreement. Now, there's one particular blank that you're going to fill in on that management agreement, and that is a dollar amount. That's a dollar amount up to which the manager can pay for expenses that come up against your account and bill you for those things. For example, if the number written in there is $500, that means that if there's a maintenance or repair expense on your property that exceeds $500, well, that's the threshold. That triggers the fact that they must now contact you prior to incurring that expense, all right? You get to choose the dollar limit. Get that management agreement done before you close. You can buy property insurance from any provider that you choose. Your turnkey provider is often happy to recommend some providers that their other clients have used in your market, your chosen investment market. Or again, you can just Google it and find your own. Be sure to let the insurance provider know that this is a rental property that you're buying, not a primary residence where you live, and not a second home of yours either, okay? Most turnkey buyers purchase both hazard and liability insurance as part of their policy. Like any other insurance policy, you will have choices about things like deductibles and monthly payments and coverage amounts. If you are financing your property, your lender will most likely be able to combine your property taxes and insurance with your monthly mortgage payment. So you're just going to have one monthly payment for principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Now, you need to talk to your property manager, okay? They're going to tell you the character of the current tenant that's already in that turnkey home that you're purchasing. And find out some things. Find out how the manager is going to pay you, okay? Is it going to be an electronic transfer? Is it going to be a paper check? What day of the month are they going to pay you? you're kind of feeling your manager out here too. Try to figure out what your communication flow is going to be like with that manager. That manager, they can also connect you with whomever renovated your turnkey property in case you have some questions for them. Most turnkey providers work in a direct model so that you do not have to go through agents unless you choose a buyer side agent for whatever reason. And you just want to have a good vibe. You kind of want to have a good feeling about your property manager, feel that they're going to communicate with you. Vet out that manager just like you would vet out a manager for a non-turnkey company. And I dedicated an episode on how to interview a property manager back in episode 22. Okay, that was how to interview a property manager. Don't overlook developing a good feeling about your property manager because, this is the one long-term relationship that you expect to have, and I just can't emphasize that enough. Your manager is one of your key team members. Of course, you can always change property managers if the one that you start out with does not work for you. Just because a property is branded turnkey by a certain company, I don't know, to some people that just in their mind that elevates the company to something even better than what it really is. Just because a property is called turnkey, that doesn't mean that you can dismiss doing your due diligence. Turnkey can be a great system. It's a way I love to buy, but there's nothing magical, absolutely magical about that term, turnkey. Keep giving your mortgage loan officer any document that they need in the meantime, okay? Because you are a factor in how quickly this deal closes, and you want to own your income property as soon as you can. The longer you go without owning your income property, the less money you're making as long as you're buying a cash flowing property. Your lender is the one that orders the property appraisal, okay? Not you. You order the inspection. The lender is the one that orders the appraisal. Now, in, I'd say about 90% of U.S. states, you as the buyer pay for the appraisal, and it costs up to about $500. Oh, and by the way, the inspection and the appraisal, you pay those costs, but they are part of your closing costs. And total closing costs with title insurance and everything, that usually runs about 4% of the property purchase price, okay? The financing process typically takes about 30 days. Now, back to the property appraisal, okay, this is typically done by a certified appraiser, and they're going to physically visit the home in almost every case. They've seemingly always got a tape measure with them where they're going ahead and verifying dimensions and footages and such. The appraiser checks out the premises, and their job is to use market comparables to make sure that the lender has adequate collateral. They're ensuring the quality of that collateral in the form of the home. They're ensuring that that collateral is good for the bank in case you, as the borrower, would default. The bank does not want to lend out more money to you than the property is worth, or else they could find themselves underwater if the borrower defaults, and the appraisal helps protect against this, all right? When you've finalized your due diligence, you've verified that the seller has made all the agreed upon repairs from the home inspection report, you're going to be ready to close, okay? And you likely live in a different state than the property, so you're going to close remotely. The title company, or in some states it's a closing attorney, but typically the title company is going to prepare your closing documents, including your loan documents, and the title company can arrange for a mobile notary to meet with you where you live in your state, and the mobile notary is going to have those documents, and you'll do the closing wherever you choose, in your home, in your office, in your local coffee shop, wherever, okay? I've done closings like this with a mobile notary. So you can sign the documents in front of a notary who will then overnight the documents back to the title company so that the transaction can fund. It might seem to you like the closing process is a lot of work, but you'll really spend most of your time just waiting. Most of the time you'll just be sitting on your hands waiting for someone else involved in the transaction to come through. So you might as well find something enjoyable to occupy your time and distract you while you wait, and feel secure in the knowledge that you've done your research and you know how to make your closing process now go more smoothly. and you're going to close, and you will need to congratulate yourself on adding another income property to your portfolio. And you know what? If you can swing it, it can be more efficient time-wise for you to buy more than one property at a time. As you buy more properties, it not only gets easier because you already know the process, but you're often going to get quantity discounts as you buy more properties in one particular market with one particular provider. For example, a management company, they might charge you a 9% management fee on your first 3 properties, but as soon as you own 4 or more, they might only charge you 8% on all 4 properties rather than 9%. And insurance companies often have discounts like this too, so you may very well get a little more profitable as you buy more property for that reason. So again, this isn't like an all-encompassing guide today with every little detail, but we've hit the major milestones in the process. So today is also evidence that real estate does not have the liquidity that some other investments do. Okay, you can see that it takes longer to get into an investment and it takes longer to get out of an investment. However, realize that that low liquidity, what it does is it actually contributes to relative price stability in real estate. You can see that there's no panic selling in real estate. Okay, so this lack of liquidity helps to stabilize the prices. And maybe the most important thing for you to keep in mind is that you cannot make any money from the property that you don't own, okay? You cannot make any money from the property that you don't own. It's the YOLO thing, Y-O-L-O. You only live once, leave a dent in the universe. No one knows the future, but your future depends on what you do today, okay? Providers that I featured on the show, like Norada Real Estate and Mid-South Homebuyers, they're reputable, and we've had dozens of listeners take action with those 2 providers. The most important thing you can do is act because, again, you cannot make any money from the property that you don't own. So I mentioned Norada and I mentioned Mid-South Homebuyers. A third place that GRE listeners have found cash flowing turnkey property is by subscribing to our free newsletter at getricheducation.com. Inside your free GRE newsletter, every month or 2, you have access to link to a webinar for cash flowing properties in hand-selected micro markets of various U.S. metros. And these are special opportunities that are not available to the general public, and they've got tenants and local property management already in place. And some of the closing costs are even paid for you as well on those. And that's in our GRE newsletter. Again, you get that at getricheducation.com by subscribing there. And we've had listeners from our GRE newsletter webinar link act on properties in Chicago, Indianapolis, and Kansas City over the past few months, and they're now enjoying passive cash flow. You can look in today's show notes for NoradaRealEstate.com, MidSouthHomebuyers.com, and of course, our invaluable newsletter that you either subscribe to or pay the opportunity cost of not subscribing to. You can do that at GetRichEducation.com. Until next week, I'm your host, Keith Weinhold, and I'm here to help you grow your wealth. Now go out there and don't quit your daydream.
You've been listening to Get Rich Education, telling you what the wealthy won't tell you about real estate and investing. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to visit iTunes and leave your comments.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.